Hey, I'm Michael. This is Chris. Welcome to episode 50.
I'm feeling a little better. We turned the air conditioning on.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to see me sweat.
Hope the audio is good. Episode 50. SEO basics. Today we're going to talk about how to use tools to find and fix broken site elements. Yeah. So this is kind of SEO 101, like SEO basics, how to think about doing SEO at the most basic level. You have to use tools and check stuff, and we're just going to run through 5 of the big categories of things to fix. So Chris, talk about number 1, broken links.
Broken links.
Go ahead.
A lot of these things too are like little. I would look at it as if your website is a house. All these items, they're not catastrophic things that are terrible, but it's like, oh, I got to fix that step. It's squeaky. That doorknob's a little off. Like little problems that like by themselves maybe don't raise huge red flags or affect your SEO, but together can really bog down and create a bad user experience too.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And it sends a signal to search engines that your website's not usable or working well. So that's why it's important.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us about number 1.
Okay.
Find and fix broken links.
Yeah, broken links. So when you start building your website, you're linking out to other sites. You're linking to internal pages. You're linking all over the place, creating links. What you should be doing. But over time, those links go down. Other people's sites that you're linking to go down, and it creates a broken link. So when people go to, they get a 404 error on either your site or another site. Google doesn't like that. They want people to go to an actual live page. Problem is, you don't really know when that stuff happens. If you link to an authoritative source on something for a blog article you're doing or a piece of content, they don't tell you when they take that site down or replace the page with something else. So you have to use tools to do that. A good tool to use, I know, Michael, I know you use Raven tools and SEMrush for your business. Those are paid tools that you can use, and I think they're anywhere from $50 to $100 a month, something like that. And those are really good at crawling your website, indexing every link, or grabbing every link and telling you where there's broken links. If you don't want to spend money, though, here's a little hot tip. You can use Screaming Frog, which is another tool, as long as your website is 500 pages or less, which is probably a lot of websites fit in that category, especially local websites. You can use Screaming Frog, pull all those links, and it can do a scan of your site, tell you where those links are broken, and you can go in and either unlink it or change it to a better link. But that's number 1, how to find and fix broken links using free and paid tools.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, Chris. And then next up, find and fix broken images. Similarly to finding and fixing broken links, we can use tools to scan. So tools like Raven tools we can use to find broken images page by page. And this is something that you would think that if you load it correctly, you wouldn't have a problem. But things happen. Content management systems are not perfect. You can have just a problem with an image, or someone goes in and loads something and they inadvertently use a similar name, and then they try to go delete what they loaded. And so they delete an image that you've got on a blog post from a year ago. There are things, a website is more of a living, breathing thing. And so using tools to scan and check for these broken images is really key. Yep. And then why this matters, if someone gets to a page, you're basically, when someone comes to a website, you're asking them to take their time and energy to absorb your content. And the exchange on that is the trade-off is their confidence in your brand or their awareness of your brand goes up just a little bit. Well, how does it feel to you when you're on a website and something looks broken? You don't get that exchange. That transaction fails. That transaction cannot occur. Yeah. It looks and feels broken.
It's like going to a store and picking out a product and opening up the product box, and the thing inside of it isn't what the outside promised. It's what it's like.
Yeah. Or I was in a Kroger one time and picked up some cream cheese, and someone had opened the seal, and swiped out some cream cheese. How crazy is that?
So which location was that? Because that's what I'm not going to go to that location anymore.
Yeah, this was a long time ago, but it was But it was in Knoxville, Tennessee. It was the one on Cumberland Avenue in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Sometimes you just need to check and make sure it's real cream cheese.
Yeah, make sure
and then put it directly back.
Make sure somebody.
I guess it wasn't cream cheese.
Yeah, make sure that on their break somebody didn't go get some of your cream cheese. Yeah, it's things like that. It's a major factor in just how the website feels, and you can't undo something like that. Once somebody sees it, they go to the page, it doesn't work. You can't undo that.
And it lowers the trust level, like you said.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And then what it does with search engines is it sends a signal that this website's sort of janky and that something's broken. Now, if it's in the header or the footer, you're probably going to catch it right away. But you have to use tools to do a real scan of your website, because you may have a services page or a subservices page that you just don't think about looking at all the time. You probably, if you're in a growing company doing other stuff, you're not going just poking around on your own website. So using a tool to find and check broken images, it's going to remove that user experience problem, and it's going to send a signal to search engine or remove a bad signal with search engines that a website, that its usability is not up and running and ready to go at full power.
Perfect. All right, number 3, find and fix meta description and titles that either A, don't exist, or B, aren't what you want them to be.
Yeah, or C, are redundant with other pages.
That's a good one. So that's primarily for titles, page titles. Again, you can use SEMrush or Raven tools to get a download link of every single page title meta description, or like I said before, you can use tools like Screaming Frog to download all that stuff into one easy to look at spreadsheet, as long as it's 500 URLs or less on your site. And that's important, number one, because Michael's good point of if you don't want to have redundant titles, each page needs to have a unique page title to it. And secondly, if you don't have a manual meta description, and what we mean by meta description is when you see a search result, you see the blue link at the top and then the text underneath it that people can read that supports the headline and the search results page. That's your meta description.
Yeah.
And the way Google works is that if you don't manually put in that meta description, Google will just scrape whatever part of the page it wants to and pull it up there. And you don't want that. You want to control. It's like a little ad for you, right?
Yep.
You want to be able to control what people see in that description and put your keywords in it and so forth. So Screaming Frog or these other tools, you can download it. And if you see any fields for meta description that are blank, that's a to-do list for you to go in, type in your meta description, make it persuasive and informative, include your keywords in it, just button it up.
Yep. And every one of those site-wide should be unique. Every page title should be about what that one page is about. Every meta description should be about what that one page is about. And so all of those are going to show up in a scan, whether it's missing too long. If it's too long for what shows up on a search results page,
that's a good one.
That's another thing that you can do. And I can't remember what the minimum is off the top of my head, but you want to make sure you have enough content there. It's longer than a page title, but it's, I don't know, probably 150 characters or something
like that. Yeah. All right.
But, that's a good one. Next up, find and fix image optimizations. So this is different than a broken image. This is making sure that the images on your website are not too big or too small. And we'll talk about this in a couple of different ways here. Google's getting better and better at reading and seeing different image elements. And what Google really wants is to see that images are being served that are of good quality and that are not slowing down the page. Images can really slow down a page. So there are different ways to size images. You can size an image using Photoshop just by changing the dimensions of the image. You can also change the resolution of the image. You can also change the image quality to compress the image. So for a JPEG, if you're at full image quality, like when you first capture an image, it can be a very large file. But if you reduce it to 80% image quality, you can have no visible reduction in the quality of the image, but cut the file size down to half or a third of the image file size. So you want to avoid situations where you're sizing the dimensions down using HTML. You want to do it in Photoshop or something before it's loaded to your website, because that whole image has to go through the pipe to the user to get there. And so if you have images that are huge files and they're having to get pushed through the pipes to the end user, the page that image is on is going to show up to Google as a slower page. So what we recommend there is using Google page speed as a test. Just do a Google search for Google page speed test. It'll give you the website. You drop the URL of the page into the page speed test, and it'll show you if any of your images are offending images. There are also a number of different tools that can find and sort of hunt down your biggest image or your biggest file size challenges on a website. So that's kind of half of the equation. Images that are too big. You want to size them for the way that they're going to be displayed on the page before you load them. And some CMSs will do this for you. For example, some instances of WordPress and some plugins will automatically optimize the image for you. That's okay. If you use those, you want to check your quality. And then if you're not using something like that, but you're just loading it directly in, it's being displayed as it's loaded, you want to make sure you're sizing it or having someone size it correctly before it's loaded. So that's the image too big side of the equation. Now let's talk about the image too small side of the equation. If you have something like a logo in your top, in your header, maybe the top left of your website, you may want to look at it on some different screens and get away from your computer where you're used to thinking about your own website. You may want to look at it on some phones, and in particular, Retina display screens on Apple products. And what I recommend doing for a logo in a header is using a really tight PNG file, so you're not using information in the file where you could just have transparency. And so that'll reduce file size. But another thing is go 2 times the image size in both dimensions. So you're going to end up with an image that's 4 times the size of how it's typically going to display for a user. And that's going to take care of your Retina display, folks. Another way to do this is just to go from, we used to use 72 DPI as kind of the standard for screens. Just go to 150 DPI. So there are different ways that your web folks, whoever's doing this for you, can manage this for you. But if you see something in your logo, in your header or your footer that looks fuzzy, or any images that are in your header or footer, if they're fuzzy, challenge them and say, hey, I'm looking at this on a Retina display, and I'm not getting a real crisp image. You want to fix that. And so these are things that you can kind of find and fix. Also, this goes for your content pages, your services pages, your contact page, your About Us page. If you use a smaller image and you try to size it up with the HTML, you're going to get some graininess and some bad quality, and it's going to hurt the way that page feels. And so, you want to fix that. So, in addition, we talked in an earlier segment about broken images. Just making sure that you've got the right workflow in place for any of your web publishing, but especially your own website, to make sure that you're using images that are not too big, not too small, but are appropriate and have appropriate file types and uses or non-uses of transparency, and are appropriately sized or not sized by either your CMS or the HTML that's displaying that page element. Yeah.
Good. Fifth and final thing here to find and fix broken things on your site is your website search box. A lot of websites have a search feature. Most websites do. My opinion on search boxes is that most sites probably need to have it buried somewhere in the footer.
Right.
Unless you're an e-commerce site or a news information site or content site, you probably don't want to have that prominently up, like where Amazon Amazon obviously is a very search forward.
Google and Amazon are search centric concepts.
Right.
Yeah.
YouTube, any of these discovery sites.
Yeah.
But you want to, for people that use it, first of all, I would go to Google Analytics and see if you have the feature. See if anybody ever lands on a search results page. If no one's landed on a search results page in the past 6 months, you might not even care about it because people aren't using it. But if they are using the feature, you want to do a search and make sure that the results make sense. Make sure there's no junk pages or irrelevant pages, or make sure the results actually make sense. A lot of times, especially with like kind of pre-built WordPress themes, that's kind of the search results page is kind of like an afterthought.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that because people expect, you got to think people are coming from Google and from Amazon and YouTube, where the search results page is like really good.
Yeah.
Because these are search companies.
Yeah.
So they're going to expect a similar experience when they come to your site. And if you give them a really junky search results page, it's a bad look for you. So do a few queries on your site and put yourself in the user's position and say, does this make sense to me? Would this be a good experience?
Yeah.
If it's not, either change it or consider removing it altogether if you're the kind of business that doesn't rely on search for people to find content on your site. A lot of times search, if people are hitting your search, this is another usability thing, but if people are hitting your search feature a lot, it might be because your content isn't arranged in a really good way.
Yeah.
And people are getting frustrated, and that's their last ditch. They're like, well, screw it, I'll just search for it.
Yep.
Like that,
which means if that's the case, the footer's a good place for it.
Yeah. So those are things. You got anything else to add to that? Ways to fix your search box?
No, I would just say test it occasionally. We in our QA process, when we build a website, we'll go in and test the search results page, see how it looks. But just check, once a month, if you go check the forms on your website, check your search box, make sure it's still working, make sure nothing's broken, because it doesn't look broken unless you use it. So it's just a good thing to check out. And that's it for episode 50. SEO 101, Find and Fix Broken Site Elements. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. Follow us, engage with us. We really appreciate all the interaction we have with people who are on the pages and find the podcast and share it. And so keep that coming. We'd love to have your questions, your comments below. And thanks so much. And Chris, we'll see you on the next one.
Later.
Thanks, everybody.